So the Ferocious Cup season is wrapping up, and I wanted to give you guys a full team breakdown why the Swagman chose the selections he did for his team. Now my team here is pretty unique. It's got two unique factors to it. Unique factor number one, no Umbreon, no Shelgeon, no ARAT whatsoever. Unique factor number two, I'm going double charm, and it works. If you are the type of player that does not have a Last Resort Umbreon, or you are interested in doing a double charms type strategy, well, this is the video for you. And if you're just interested in why Swagman picked the swag picks he did anyways, well, I hope I didn't say swag too many times to turn you off to this video. Alright, and just to validate for you guys here, all three of these teams for my Ferocious Cups are the same exact team. Just validating that this is a winning team. This isn't the meme that loses, it is the meme that wins. Although I did take a gnarly L in the Fox Valley tournament. Now, if you are interested in a tournament recap, I am going to be posting this video later this week, my Ferocious Cup battle at the Fox Valley. It is the cup that I did take an L in, but through the L, we get knowledge. And to help guide us through my team building picks, we're going to be using the Flork drawings. If you don't know who the Flork is, follow him on Twitter. He does some pretty funny artwork. He's responsible for all those sock puppet looking dude memes. Clark from Connecticut is one of his bigger ones, or maybe it's just bigger because I like it. At any rate, check him out. Really cool artwork here. Now this side here is me, the team that I selected, going with Alolan Ninetales, Granbull, Vaporeon, Bibarel, Skuntank, and Alolan Sandslash. And this is, I'm just going to call this the meta. This isn't 100% the meta. Don't look too much into this. This is just for reference. Now looking at my team, you might be thinking, Ryan Swag, why no Umbreon? Why no Dark type? Why no Shelgeon? What's going on, man? Are you crazy? Well, first off, I don't have a Last Resort Umbreon, and I don't really have a way of getting a Last Resort Umbreon. I do have some offers in Canada, but that's like a $400 flight that I don't want to do for a freaking Last Resort Umbreon. I think the whole thing with Last Resort Umbreon is pretty ridiculous. I did go ham with my criticism in my Meta Simplified video. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But yeah, no, I think it's ridiculous because Last Resort Umbreon beats all the alternatives to Last Resort Umbreon. It's just silliness. Then when it comes to the prospect of using a non-Last Resort Umbreon or a Shelgeon or an Alolan Raticate to make up for not having a Last Resort Umbreon, I feel like those guys are Last Resort Umbreon scabs. Using those guys to me is like being compliant with the inequality that the Silph Arena has created by having Last Resort Umbreon be on top of their curated meta. On top of that, they all lose to Last Resort Umbreon, and I didn't want to put myself into that compromising position. So I decided to go full force in the opposite direction, reject the idea of these Pokemon completely, and go with the double charm strat. Now another thing you might be thinking looking at this team is, Ryan, why no anti-electric Pokemon? What are you going to do when Vaporeon and Bibarel come at you? Well, interesting thing about double charm. So you've got Alolan Ninetales here, right? And then you got Bibarel, and you got the Vaporeon. And we all know that for the most part, Bibarel beats Alolan Ninetales, but Alolan Ninetales beats the Vaporeon. Well, Granbull here has a little interesting thing going on with it. Granbull beats the Bibarel, but for the most part loses to the Vaporeon. Depending on IVs, it's actually kind of one way or another, so you've got to keep that in the back of your mind. But yeah, with both Charmers, you do have water types kind of soft countered in a way. And then on top of that, Bibarel doesn't 100% beat Alolan Ninetales. There is some interesting like lost fast move, added fast move, QSA nonsense going on. If you want more details on that, check out Hero Vange's video on the topic, link up above and in the description if you want to get learned up. If your Bibarel lost to an Alolan Ninetales and the sim said that it shouldn't have lost to Alolan Ninetales, get learned up on how to prevent that and why it happened. Then as far as Granbull versus the Vaporeon goes, there are some defense breakpoints and offense breakpoints that Vaporeon and Granbull can meet in order to outdo each other. So it's a little bit dicey. Depends on the IV spreads. So with that in mind, I felt that I had water covered enough where I wouldn't need electric. And then on top of that, the charm users just hammer down on electric types. Just mash those guys into the earth. It's kind of hilarious watching an electric type go against the charm user, to be honest. And then on top of that, the charm users do have a pretty good time against Skuntank as well. Skuntank should be able to beat Alolan Ninetales when they're up against each other, but the Granbull, once again, IVs depending, Granbull can beat the Skuntank. Higher rated Skuntanks should be able to beat Granbull, but if the Skuntank has even like slightly damage on it before Granbull comes in, well then Granbull should be taking the W there. And for those reasons, I felt strong and comfortable with going with the double charm pick. Now, you might be sitting at home thinking, well, if Granbull's so good, why don't I just go with Granbull instead of Alolan Ninetales for my team? Well, Alolan Ninetales is all important. Straight up, Alolan Ninetales is the best Pokemon in this meta by far. If you were to be in some weird, terrible Ferocious Cup draft pick tournament and you're the first one up, you'd want to go with Alolan Ninetales instead of Last Resort Umbreon. In fact, if you had just like a post-hatch Alolan Ninetales versus a rank 1 Last Resort Umbreon, you'd want to go with the Alolan Ninetales. There is no replacing Alolan Ninetales. However, Granbull adds to Alolan Ninetales nonsense. Now, I did mention before, Granbull's IVs are pretty important for the Granbull fights, matchups, whatever you call it. And the big thing with Granbull is that you want to have a 189 attack stat. In fact, my Granbull has a 188.9 attack stat. If you're able to hit that high threshold, then you are more consistent against a Bibarel. If your attack stat's too low and you're up against a Bibarel with a defense stat that's high enough, then you are less consistent at hammering down the Bibarel. Additionally, there is an earlier breakpoint for the Vaporeon as well. I think it's around like 187 or something like that. But if Vaporeon has a high enough defense stat, you could also potentially miss that too. And for those reasons, you want to make sure you have a high attack stat Granbull. As far as the defense and HP IVs go, I just worked with what I had, and I only had 2 Granbulls that had a high enough attack stat. I would say that the defense matters a little bit more than the HP does, so make sure you just have a solid defense, but having like the near 189 attack stat is the big deal for the Granbull. In fact, I had a shiny Granbull, shiny Snubbull actually, that was slightly worse in the attack stat than the one that I ended up using. It had like a 188.2 attack stat, where the other one is 188.9. And running simulations on it, it was inconsistent enough that I felt that it would be suicide, basically, for me to bring the shiny into the fight. On the other hand, Alolan Ninetales, I have a very okay traded for Alolan Ninetales that I could have used, but instead I opted to use my shiny post-hatch. And the reason why is because the IVs aren't as big of a deal for Alolan Ninetales. Like, I could feel free to flex that way. Granbull, you need the attack stat to be flexing. Now, while Double Charm does sound like it's just all bite onto the Dark-type Pokemon, it is a lot of bark as well. Big goal here is to just kind of flat out scare the Umbreon from even coming in. Because Umbreon, if you don't catch it with a Charm user, can still wreak havoc upon your team. So the main goal, scare Umbreon. I don't want to charm down Umbreon. I don't even want to see Umbreon. But if I do see Umbreon, I got 2 dogs here ready to rip it apart. So yeah, but scaring Umbreon, putting bench pressure upon it is another big deal with this particular strat. And then once again, going with how they soft counter the water type Pokemon, a lot of teams do run only one water gun user. If it's Bibarel, then that means I can be comfortable just bringing in Granbull and backing it up with 2 non-charm users. If it's the Vaporeon, well then I might be benching the Granbull and just going straight A9. So in that respect, not only does the double charm mind game my opponent, but the double charm does create scenarios where I can just pick and choose which charm users I want, and I can just hammer down my opponent with the optimal charmer for the right team. Then moving on down, we got the double water type Pokemon. Now, the most important water type of this group by far is the Bibarel. And the reason why Bibarel is so important is because it A, has the native Hyper Fang, so you don't have to worry about trying to get Last Resort to also counter water types and stuff that resists you. That's one big piece of it. Another big piece is Bibarel doesn't have as much weird IV shenanigans going on as the Vaporeon goes. Here are some crib notes that I got from Manaholics. Manahawks got them from Gotsy on the Go Stadium Discord, basically highlighting all the different ways that Vaporeon's attack, defense, and HP IVs matter. As far as my Vaporeon goes, I wasn't able to meet all the checkoffs that Gotsy is suggesting here, but I did notice from my own research that like a 118 attack stat met enough breakpoints in general. At the end of the day, Vaporeon's complicated, and that's even before you consider Hydro Pump versus Last Resort. Bibarel, you don't have to worry about any of that, and Bibarel's freaking awesome. Other ways Bibarel is awesome is that it does soft counter the other water-type Pokemon because you do have the Hyper Fang threat. Another way Bibarel is awesome is that it can beat Alolan Ninetales unless you get caught with that weird shenanigans. Once again, Hero of Ancients video in the description settles that for you pretty well. So no matter how you shape this, Bibarel is absolutely a must-have for this team and a must-have in this meta in general. Then when it comes to the Vaporeon, I kind of initially added Vaporeon and built Vaporeon for my team as like an extra sort of soft counter to the Umbreon. To be honest, my team as a whole, Vaporeon does kind of feel like the weakest link. And if you did want to replace Vaporeon with something else, that could work out. But as far as me choosing Vaporeon goes, I went with the Hydro Pump variant so I could potentially hammer down the Umbreon in a pinch. Big thing with beating Umbreon is catching it with a Charm user, and if you can't catch it with a Charm user, then that might be GG for you. Vaporeon is a Water-type Pokemon that would also give you a route to beating Umbreon in a pinch. Another big thing with Vaporeon as well is it does offer some more consistency against a farmed-up Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen catches one of these two guys, farms it up, has Earth powers, ready to rock and roll. Vaporeon can potentially navigate that and let you come ahead. I mean, Vaporeon's probably going to be toasted from that, but it's a less dire situation than it would be for most other Pokemon. But if you are some degenerate Last Resort Umbreon haver and you are scoping out this video, this is the swap right here. This is the swap. Actually, if you were to swap it with Umbreon, in retrospect, this is actually Guan's team. So, yeah, if you're sitting here thinking, man, Ryan Swag, Double Charm's only working for you because you're bad, and you only fight people that are bad, and Double Charm is bad. You're bad, Ryan Swag. Well, Guan is like the most lauded genius of PvP because he won one big tournament, and Manahawk says he's a genius too, so I'm inclined to agree with this, and that guy used Double Charm, so maybe Swagman isn't that removed from reality. Oh. Now that I'm near the end of the season here and have used Vaporeon a ton, I think I would have been a little bit more satisfied with a Last Resort Vaporeon. I don't have it. I don't really have a way to get it. But I feel like the coverage of Last Resort would have been a little bit more important and would have given my team a little bit more flexibility. At any rate, having both water types is important for this team as well to back up the fairy types, because obviously double fairy, well, if somebody's running double anti-charm, that's going to be some pretty big trouble for me right there. And the double water types threaten the double anti-charm. Somebody's got double anti-charm and they're looking at my team. Are they going to bring double anti-charm? Well, heck, that guy might bring double water then. Well, then do I only bring one anti-charmer? But, oh shoot, Ryan Swag, he might bring double charm, and then I didn't bring double anti-charm. That would be so silly. That's the kind of mind games, the kind of position I want to put my opponent in, and that's the kind of position that you do put your opponent in with this core here. Overall, I feel like this core of 4 Pokemon can basically handle everything in the meta if you have the right combination in the right order. Obviously, you don't always have the right combination in the right order, which is why we have 2 other Pokemon to try to clear up the inconsistencies. 2 inconsistencies that this core does have is A, it is soft weak to the Alolan Ninetales, and inconsistency number 2 is that it is soft weak to the Skuntank. Most particularly very high rank Skuntanks. So it might not be an issue for everybody watching this video, but if you are in a very high level area, Skuntank can put a lot of pressure on this team. Now, interesting thing about being soft weak to Alolan Ninetales is that you look at this team and you think, why would I bring an Alolan Ninetales against this team? There's no clean hit for my Alolan Ninetales. There's nothing that I just flat out beat. But the thing is that Alolan Ninetales is just stupid freaking good and stupid freaking threatening. Alolan Ninetales beats Granbull. Alolan Ninetales ties with Alolan Ninetales. Alolan Ninetales can beat Bibarel, and Alolan Ninetales does beat the Vaporeon here. In fact, Alolan Ninetales can beat these two guys too, given the right scenarios. Alolan Ninetales might not have a super Omega hit on any one pick of my team, but it is very, very threatening to all the picks on my team to some level. This is actually one Pokemon I don't want to see. And that also plays into the mind games of this team as well. You look at this team, you don't think about bringing Alolan Ninetales, you might not bring Alolan Ninetales. That helps me out. But this is also another reason why I didn't make a dive for the Shelgeon at the last minute instead of like the Vaporeon or something like that. Because I'm aware of my soft weakness to Alolan Ninetales. I don't want to give an obvious hit for Alolan Ninetales. I don't want my opponent to see my team and go, that guy has an Umbreon, that guy has an A-Rat, that guy has a Shelgeon. I'm going to bring my Alolan Ninetales into this fight. I don't want that happening because I don't really want to see Alolan Ninetales. Which means all you Madison guys out there, I know you're freaking watching my video right now so you can write down notes on how to beat me. Yeah, if you bring Alolan Ninetales every single fight, I'm not going to have a good time. I'm never going to have a good time against that. Yeah. And then as far as Skuntank goes, Skuntank is the premier safe switch of the meta and generally has an advantage against everything here. I know that the Granbull is kind of built to wail down on the Skuntank, but it's still something I don't exactly want to fight. Because of these two vulnerabilities, I decided to roll with my own Skuntank and the Alolan Sandslash. As far as going with my own Skuntank goes, it is the safe switch of this meta. You just throw it out there, and chances are things are going to be alright. And then on top of that, it can wail down on the water types pretty well. And it can also soft counter an Umbreon, especially if that Umbreon doesn't have Last Resort. So Skuntank has a ton of utility going for it, and it is quite possibly a must-have pick for this particular cup. And I'm very glad I brought it with me. So the reason why I went with Alolan Sandslash is to give me a little bit more consistency and more threat to the Nidoqueen in particular. I don't want to get caught by a Nidoqueen. I don't want to deal with Nidoqueen hammering on me with Earth Powers, no matter how prepared I feel I might be. And if my 3 counters to your Nidoqueen scares your Nidoqueen away, that is just phenomenal for me. And on top of that, does a really good job against the Skuntank, shows up and is like, what do you got, Skuntank? I'm freaking Steel type, man. And the Ice Punch spam and the potential threat of the Earth Power is kind of spooky for the Water types as well. Not completely bad. As far as my Alolan Sandslash goes, I wanted to go with the Earth Power, but the TM gods were not with me. So instead of going with some trade high stat product one, I just, in desperation, because I felt that Alolan Sandslash was so integral to my team, just mass evolved all of my Alolan Sandshrews until I got one with Ice Punch. And then I second moved that one, and then I just rolled with what it had. And what it had was Gyro Ball. And overall, in my heart of hearts, I feel like Earth Power, Bulldoze. And overall, in my heart of hearts, I feel Bulldoze is the more consistent move for Alolan Sandslash, and it's the move I would want to bring to the fight. But the fact that Gyro Ball can hammer down on the Alolan Ninetales, that was pretty nice in a lot of my matchups. Because you just whip it out, and they're like, yeah, I can take a Bulldoze. And then they die. And they're like, oh. And there you have it. That is basically my team and why I picked it. To recap, double Charm, so you can soft counter the water types, and so you can threaten the Umbreon. And then double Water Gun, because I don't want Anti-Charm, thinking that it's going to have a free ride against the Swagman. And then going with the Alolan Sandslash here, just to give a little bit of threat, a little bit of nudge to A9 to just stay away. And then also giving me some extra tech against these two bullies over here. And then finally, Skuntank. Skuntank is just a boss. I'm very glad I brought it. I think most teams are going to want to run it. It just handles kind of everything very nicely. If you got any questions on this content, comment below. Let me know what's up. I'll be happy to help you out. And if you already have Last Resort Umbreon, you're not interested in this strat, but you have a friend in your community that is without and you want to help them out, well then link them to this video. Maybe they can actually get the W in sometime. And if you are interested in seeing my tournament recap, of course the one where I lost, right? Well then, subscribe to SwagTips, hit the bell, keep your eyes peeled. Should be tomorrow or the next day that I got it on my channel. SwagTips. Timeless Cup. Ryan, Swag, please tell us about Timeless Cup. What do I pick? There's so many picks. The spice. It's a spice cup right here. Oh. That video's coming out next week. So, it's coming. If there's anything I can tell you right now, Dragonair Lapras. That's like all you really need to know for the time. But that video, coming up.